And now it is really my pleasure to introduce an ornithologist of great renown. She is an LIU professor emeritus and a ornithology researcher at the Museum of Natural History. So please welcome Carole Griffiths.
Hi, everybody. Thank you for joining me. So I'm going to be talking about my 2 trips to Ecuador. I will be concentrating on 2 different areas in Ecuador. Let me just show that. Okay. All right. So this is Ecuador right over here. It's a small country about the size of Nevada. And I'm going to be talking about the Galapagos, about 1,000 kilometers west of Ecuador. And then I'm going to be talking about the Andes, okay, this middle part. So Ecuador itself is divided into 3 major regions: the coastal, the Sierras, the mountain, and then the Oriente, the eastern part of Ecuador. So why Ecuador? Why do people go to Ecuador? Well, Ecuador has remarkable biodiversity. It has 26 different kinds of habitat types. It is the most biodiversity per square kilometer of any nation in the world. And I will going to show you some of the most beautiful biodiversity. But before I show you that, I want to review some basic information about biodiversity and about classifying birds. So this is Ecuador. These are the kinds of species that it has: over 1,600 bird species, 16% of the world's bird species, and many of amphibians and butterflies and mammals. So this is a general overview of biodiversity, at least animal biodiversity in Ecuador. So before I talk about the birds, I want to tell you a little bit about how we classify birds. And these are 2 covers of 2 field guides that I use a lot. And so any of you who are birders, obviously you have field guides. If you're not a birder, I would recommend either of these 2 if you want to start doing some bird watching. So when you open up the bird book and you look at the first page, there's an introduction, and then there are birds that are divided into different groups. So I don't know if you can see that, but there are ducks and upland game birds and owls and gulls and shorebirds. These divisions are all based on the way birds look, the bones of the birds, the osteology, or DNA. So people like me who do systematics, we look at different kinds of characteristics of birds, and then we try to classify them into different kinds of groups. So that is kind of a really basic overview. Right now, most of us are only using DNA variation. So what are birds? So on the left, you can see phylum, class, ordered, family, genus, species. Those of you who took basic biology, probably you did this years ago. So where do birds stand within the vertebrates? So birds are in the phylum Chordata. Okay, so those are most all the vertebrates. Okay, and they are in the class Aves. And so birds are shown up here on the top, and they are closely related to crocodiles. And they were within a group of reptiles. And here's mammals down here. So birds are basically reptiles. Okay, and they are again in the class Aves. And so once you get into the class, you divide classes into orders. And these are pictures of some of the different orders of birds. And birds have about 30 orders right now. This is still a little bit flexible as we do more and more analyses of DNA and other kinds of information. So ostriches, waterfowls, and seriformes. Note that orders always have formes at the end: Strugiiformes, Pelicaniformes, Ciconeoformes, etc. That's how you know that it defines an order. If you look at the word, the part of the word that says formes at the end. Okay, so why am I interested in Ecuador? Well, within the class Aves, there are several different groups. And for Ecuador, one of the reasons why birders like to go to Ecuador is because of the amazing biodiversity. And that biodiversity is pretty much centered in 3 different groups of birds. So first is the hummingbirds over here. And if you look here under the picture, I will always have the common name, the species, the genus and the species name, the family that bird belongs to, and then the order. And I've done that for all of the pictures of birds so that I emphasize where biodiversity is most prevalent in Ecuador. Okay, so hummingbirds. Okay, within the songbirds, the order Passeriformes, there are two major groups, the subacenes and the acenes. The acenes are the true songbirds, the birds that we have around here, like robins and warblers and cardinals and things like that. Okay, within the acenes, Ecuador has an amazing number within the family Tropidae. Those are the family of tanagers. So they have over 500 species in the Tropidae. We have maybe about 30 at the most. Oops, sorry. Okay, the subacenes are, again, in the Passeriformes, but they don't have the anatomy that allows them to do really complicated songs. And so those are things like flycatchers that we have here. We have, again, maybe 30 species of flycatchers in North America, and there are over 500 flycatchers and wood creepers, subacenes in South America. So one of the reasons why I wanted to go to South America is because I wanted to learn more about this family, about the subacenes, because I had never seen very many of them. And I wanted to also learn something about I wanted to see all the different kinds of tanagers. And actually, I think I made a mistake. There's 170 species of tanager. I was looking at the wrong thing. Anyway, so some of you who have seen summer tanagers and scarlet tanagers up here, well, they're not tanagers, they're cardinals. So you're going to be able to see pictures now of the real tanagers. So this is a family tree of birds, and I'm just showing you this, not that you're going to see it in much detail because it's too small, but I wanted to show you where those three major groups that we're going to be concentrating on are within the family tree of birds. So the subacenes and the acenes are way up here, and way down here are the hummingbirds. And so these kinds of family trees are what systematists try to analyze, try to develop and analyze. All right, our first stop was the Galapagos. And again, the Galapagos are about 1,000 kilometers west of the Ecuadorian coast. And they have distinct fauna, not a lot of species, but the species there are really distinct. And as most of you know, they are the laboratory, these islands are the laboratory that allowed the idea of evolution and Darwin's idea of evolution by natural selection to be developed. And what's interesting also about the Galapagos is that they have the last undisturbed ecosystem relatively undisturbed ecosystem of insects in the world that exhibit patterns of communities that existed before homogenization of those insect communities. So I'm going to first show you just a few pictures of the environment. So these are three of the islands that we went to. Daphne Major, which is where the grants work right now on the Darwin's finches, Bartolome, and South Plaza. Most of these are, again, volcanic islands and really quite beautiful in their own way. And this is an iconic image that a lot of people see. And this is the sleeping island image off San Cristobal. So we conducted our trip on this small ship called the Eric, about 20 passenger ship. It was a lovely trip. And the boat trips are very well regulated right now in the Galapagos. Okay. And some of the animals that we saw sea lions. Over here, two pictures. And again, as most of you probably know, the animals there that are not really afraid of humans, so you can get really close to them. And that is one of the amazing things, just to be able to stand 5 feet from a sea lion and watch the behavior. So other animals we saw were the Pacific green sea turtle and this marine iguana. And the marine iguana is endemic It only exists in the Galapagos, and it is the only marine lizard in the world. It's an amazing, just an amazing animal. So now on to the birds. So there are about 88 species that are commonly seen in the Galapagos. 56 of these are either species or subspecies that are endemic, that only occur in the Galapagos. And that is one of the reasons why a lot of birders want to go there. So this is a picture of the red-billed tropic bird. And again, the order name is in red and the family name is in green. So as we go along, you can again see, and I'll have an asterisk next to the family, the order name of the birds that are the three groups of birds that I am concentrating on. The American flamingo, and the yellow warbler, again, a little bit different than the yellow warblers that we have here. Again, you can get really close to these birds. The waved albatross, this is one of the reasons why we went when we went, because they were breeding at that time and I wanted to see that. And I'm going to show a little bit, I think I'm going to show a little bit of a movie.
Back, do you have it? See? Okay.
I cut off the sound because it's mainly people talking. These are some bonding moves and some mating moves. Okay, the blue-footed boobies over here, and these are the young to the right, very downy young. And I'll show you a little bit of a movie of the blue-footed booby so you can actually see the blue feet. This is a pair that is doing a mating ritual. They will be copulating pretty soon. I don't know whether I will show you the whole thing because it really takes too long. Not the copulation, but the movement towards it. Okay, and then a red-footed booby too. And here you can obviously see the red foot. Okay, these are the Darwin's finches, and these are these iconic birds. These are the birds, these and the mockingbirds are the birds that that Darwin really looked at, that really made him aware of the theory of evolution by natural selection. So these are all on different islands, and you can see the size of the beaks. They are different in coloration, but it's mainly the beak size that's so important because it's the beak size that drives evolution of these animals in the Galapagos. So the Galapagos, wonderful place, but there are problems and they're trying to regulate them. So tourism is a problem. A lot of people want to go there. I don't blame them, but too many people really destroy the islands. They do regulate the boat tours quite well, but the day trippers are not regulated, and that probably is something that has to happen. There's also some problems now with traffic on one of the occupied islands, traffic killing with roadkill and traffic. Okay, but they're pretty good about preserving land. They've developed a lot of different kinds of programs to conserve species, and their land use regulations are fairly strict. So we hope that all of these things together will help preserve the Galapagos. So the second part of my trip was to the Andes, and we're going to start on that now. So this is the volcano Antisana, one of 32 mainland volcanoes. And we only spent one day in this region on the first trip. We went to the grasslands, and these are the grasslands called the Paramo. And so they are unique and they have unique birds. So this is the Andean condor. These are some of the birds that I have studied. The largest flying bird in the world. The wingspan from here to here is over 12 feet. And they are related to things like our turkey vultures and black vultures. They're all in the same family, the Cathartidae. So you have seen relatives of the Andean condor, even if you haven't seen the condor itself. Okay, this again here is the asterisk. This is one of the three groups, the subacean passeriforms, that have such an amazing biodiversity in Ecuador. This is the Paramo ground tyrant. And it's not, I haven't seen it being really tyrannical, but it is a tyrant. Okay, this is a relative of our peregrine falcons, the carunculated caracara. Another of the birds, this family I've done some work on. And this is the biggest hummingbird in the world, the giant hummingbird. And again, you notice the asterisk, one of the three major groups, probably about the size of a robin. But it's just amazing to think that it's a hummingbird, because when we think of hummingbirds, we think of these little tiny things. So the paramount, these grasslands, again, are having problems. And actually, these kinds of environmental problems are occurring all over the world. But when they occur in a place that has such amazing biodiversity, we really want to see that biodiversity saved. So they have mining pressure because there are minerals under the grasslands, and there are also some species decline. And in order to address that, they've instituted some pretty good grasslands management that seems to be having an effect. But one of the most interesting things that's happened there is that in November this past year, there was a court decision that was historic that would let a community vote on whether to allow mining in its midst. So the community can decide, not the state and not the mining company. And that has set the stage for a region-wide grassroots pushback against these kinds of extractive projects. So this was it for our first trip. And then the second trip, we went on a trip that went on the west slope, 1 week on the west slope of the Andes, and then the second week on the east slope of the Andes. And we started at this reserve called Yanacocha, which was wonderful. This was the first day though. It's up over 10,000 feet. And so if you can notice this gate, we took a trip, just a hike, really easy walk around here. I had to come back after about half an hour because the lack of oxygen was beginning to affect me and I was beginning to get a headache. And so I had to suffer because I had to sit to the right and just watch all of these beautiful hummingbirds that came to the feeders that were there. So see, this is some of the birds. So this is a guan, and this is related to our chickens, okay, in the order Galliformes. And they have a few guans there, just huge, amazing birds. Okay, now we start with the tanagers. And every time I see these pictures, I can't believe them because they are just so beautiful. So just note all the different kinds of colors on this bird. It's just a gorgeous, gorgeous bird. Okay, and these are all going to be tanagers following. Okay, this is a flower piercer, and I don't know if you can see it, but the tip of the beak has a little hook that allows it to tear open a flower to get close to the nutrients that it needs from that flower. Another tanager, flame-faced. I'm sorry, I just really enjoy watching these birds. Okay, another tanager. Okay, again, a mountain tanager. And if you notice the blue here, it looks a little bit fluorescent. So birds in general do not have pigments for blue. They have red and yellow and brown pigments, but no pigment for blue. So when you see a blue bird, you're usually seeing a reflection that can change. So if the sun doesn't shine on it the right way, it will not look blue. So blue is one of the major colors that really don't have, except for one species of birds, there are no pigments for blue for bird feathers. Okay, another mountain tanager. Okay, and now the absolutely gorgeous hummingbirds that are in South America.
Carole?
Yeah?
Somebody asked that the previous bird looks smaller than the scarlet tanager. Is that true?
No, it's not. It's about the same size, maybe a little bit bigger.
Okay.
This one, the mountain tanager? Yeah, it's not. No, I think the scarlet tanager is a little bit smaller, actually. So again, it's really hard to tell because you can't see these in perspective and next to other birds. Okay, so here is the coronet. And again, what's interesting, there are a lot of different genera of hummingbirds. And so you can tell the species that are closely related because they belong in the same genus. but I'm kind of interested in the common names also, because I think some of them are very descriptive and some of them you just wonder, why are they called that? So the great sapphire wing, you can see why it's called a great sapphire wing. Pretty obvious description. Okay. Violet-tailed sylph, and just look at that gorgeous tail. Look at this, just the subtle, beautiful colors in that bird. Okay, the sword-billed hummingbird, and note this hummingbird has one of the longest bills of all hummingbirds. And so hummingbirds have different sized bills, and some of them are very specific for different kinds of plants, and some hummingbirds are a little bit more of a generalist feeder.
Carole, we have a question.
Sure.
Somebody thought the pictures were gorgeous, but they were also interested, is there an evolutionary reason so many of these birds are more colorful than the birds we're accustomed to seeing here?
Okay, so one of my friends, Kevin Burns, has done a lot of studies of that. I don't know that there's a reason for it, but certainly something happened along the evolution of these birds, and some became more colorful, and it certainly helped them succeed more, maybe in terms of attracting females. So they had more reproductive success. I don't know of a reason. That is an explanation for why, but I don't know that it gives you the reason why that happened. It could have just been chance that helped, chance that worked.
Okay, I also just want to mention to the general group, we're not using the raised hand function. If you have a question, please type it in the chat function, which you'll see at the bottom. Thank you.
Okay, and if anybody's really interested in the evolution of tanagers, please email me and I can send them copies of my friend's papers. He's really done a lot of great work on that. All right, so we stayed in eco lodges throughout Ecuador. So this is the Bella Vista Cloud Forest. All of the eco lodges are on private reserves, and their mission is to conserve the habitat, conserve the biodiversity. And the way they get to conserve it is by having tourists come in, so that the money that they need for conservation, they raise from having tourists come in to pay to stay there to see the birds. And I noticed that one of the things that's happening now since COVID is that because travel has been restricted, some of these places are having a real problem with conservation, and some of them are asking for donations. So if you've been to Ecuador, might be one thing for you to do. I started to give some donations to some of these places. But anyway, Bella Vista Cloud Forest was a wonderful place. And it was one of the few places, I think more are doing that now, that leaves its lights on at night. So the first night that we were there, they had left the lights on. The insects come in, and then as dawn approaches and the birds start coming in, you get up, at 5 o'clock in the morning, and you go out, and all of these birds that are usually deep in the forest are on stairs, are on the walkway in front of you, just getting all of the moths and other kinds of insects that are around. So you can see wood creepers that are usually really hard to see, or ant pitters, 2 feet ahead of you, just eating birds. Just an amazing experience and a wonderful experience.
So Carole, besides that, is there a best time of the day that you would see these birds?
Just like everywhere else around here, when they are active first thing in the morning, and usually later on in the evening. But again, that depends on the kinds of birds, because some of the birds are active all day. But in general, when you go to a place like this, you get up really early and you go out first thing. All right, so this is toucan barbet. This is related to our woodpeckers. It's in the same order as our woodpeckers. Look at the bill, though, all the different colors in the bill. Okay, cinnamon flycatcher, really cute little birds. Again, one of the subacean passeriformes. So we have a few flycatchers here, but certainly not the extent that they have in South America. Okay, again, one of the tanagers, the golden nape tanager. And you can see the gold up here, which is where it gets its name.
Carole, all the blue that we're seeing is really not blue. It's really just the reflection of the
It's not it's not a pigmented blue. It is a reflective blue. Okay, the turquoise jay related in the family Corvidae, that is the family of crows and jays. Again, another beautiful bird. Yeah, and also talking about the blue, next time you see a blue jay, look at it carefully and see if you can see it in different kinds of light, and you can see how the color changes. Okay, the russet-crowned warbler, we only saw about 3 species of warblers in Ecuador. So around here in the spring and fall during migration, if you go to Central Park or any of the parks in Westchester, you can sometimes see 20 species in one day if you're lucky. We only saw 3. So the biodiversity of warblers is much better up here than in South America, at least in Ecuador. Okay, so one of the birds we wanted to see was something called an ant pitta. So there's one place that you can see it. And so this is waiting for the ant pitta. This is my son, daughter-in-law, and grandson. So you have this really comfortable seat, and the guide over here throws some food down. There's some logs down here that the ant pitta comes out on. Throw some food out, some mealworms or something like that, and you sit and wait. And if you're patient, after about 15 or 20 minutes, this cute little bird comes out. So these, again, do not occur up here. The ant pittas only occur in South America. And just notice the size of the legs compared to the body. Very, very cute little bird. Again, it comes out for maybe 5 or 10 minutes and goes back in, and that's it. Okay, the choco toucan. And toucans, I know, are certainly on cereals and things around here, so they're pretty good. They are also related to woodpeckers. All right, so this is, again, one of the tanagers, and it has 2 different names because this is one of the problems with birds. Not so much a problem. It certainly gives systematists places to work. This bird occurs on both the east side and the west side of the Andes. And so they're 2 separated populations. And they are now considered to be, depending on which checklist you look at, and the checklists are the names of all the different birds, where they occur, things like that, and the numbers of species. So if a systematist is working on several different populations of birds and figures out that actually those populations are really 2 different species, not one species, that systematist will write it up, will send something into a checklist committee to say, based on this evidence, I think there should be 2 different species. And then sometimes the checklist will split those species, give them different names or not. So this is either the flame rump tanager or the lemon rump tanager. And in some checklists, it's considered 2 species. And in other checklists, it's considered 1 species. And I can say more about that later if anybody's interested. Okay, and then this beautiful black and chestnut eagle. Again, these are the birds that I've worked on, and so I love these birds of prey. They're just gorgeous. Okay, again, one of the target birds, the cock of the rock. We definitely wanted to see it. So these birds have a ritual. The males form something called a lek, L-E-K, and the lek is where the males come and they display. They either show off their beautiful colors and their beautiful bodies, or they sing beautifully, and they're doing that so they can attract females. Females will come in, they'll check out all these different birds, and they'll decide which is the nicest, which is the best looking, which has the best song, and they'll mate with them. And then the females will go off and raise the young. So, and what happens is that there tend to be 1 or 2 males that will get the most matings in any lek. So these are really distinct birds, obviously. And so, again, we wanted to see them. And I'm going to show you, this is a sound of the lek. So you sit there and watch these birds and you hear this sound. And I think probably the females are more attracted to the color than the sound, but I don't know. Maybe they like those sounds.
Okay, before you go on, is that related to the Beretta bird, the cockatoo?
No. The cockatoos are the parrot family. These are not. These are subacenes again. Okay, so they're Passeriformes. They're different order totally. It can, but I can see why somebody would think that because of the feathers on the head.
Yeah. Another question. What would be a bird predator?
a bird that preys on something else or something that preys on?
I think both ways, if you could.
Okay, well, hawks and falcons are the predators, the major predators of birds. And what can prey on birds? Other birds can prey on birds. So in my feeder in the back, yesterday I had a Cooper's hawk eating a mourning dove. So the really biggest birds, probably the main predators are humans. Is that okay?
Yeah.
Okay.
That works.
Okay. All right. This is the second eco lodge that we stayed in, which was lovely. This is my grandson here with binoculars. So this was, again, these are all lovely. You know, the accommodations are fine. They're not super fancy, but they are in beautiful areas. So you can just sit in your room or sit on a deck and just watch birds. This particular eco lodge, this is not the lodge itself. This is an accessory building, and this is a place where they make chocolate. So we would come here after birding and get this wonderful hot chocolate, sit here and drink hot chocolate and watch the birds. Alternatively, we would sit out here and have a cocktail and not watch birds, but at least relax after a day's birding. This was, again, another wonderful lodge, wonderful people running these things.
Someone commented that it looks like paradise.
Believe me, it was paradise. I so want to go back.
Take me with you.
Okay, so some of the birds that we saw there. So again, this hummingbird, which to me looks almost, if you didn't look at the beak, looks almost like a moth. You get a pretty small hummingbird, a hermit. So again, I'm not sure why they were called hermits. I really should look that up, but the common names, again, are really idiosyncratic. Okay, the orange-breasted fruit eater, one of the Sabacine passeriformes. Again, one of the three major groups. But look at the colors on this one. Just amazing variation in colors. Okay, a quail dove related to our mourning doves. This was a very hard bird to see, a very secretive bird, and we were really lucky to see it. Okay, the moss-backed tanager, and you can see why it's called moss-backed. And these glistening green. We saw these, it was very foggy, and we walked out and we went to where we could see them. We stopped there and all of a sudden they showed up. And even though it was foggy, their color was so vibrant that it just shone right through the fog. One of the most beautiful birds. Okay, so sometimes when we were traveling, we would stop for lunch, and all of the places that we stopped at had bird feeders. So we would get our food, and then there would be a bird coming to the bird feeder. So we would leave the food and rush and take pictures of the birds. So this is my son taking a picture of one of the birds. I'm not sure which one this one, but one of the birds. But this particular restaurant was situated high in the hills above this river. Just gorgeous. So in addition to the wildlife, just the scenery was so wonderful. Okay, another tanager, silver-throated tanager. And again, so many and such subtle colorings. And this is maybe one of my favorite hummingbirds, the chestnut-breasted hummingbird. But look at all the different variations of color just in the head itself and on the wing. And just wonder. All right, so we spent 7 days doing that. We went back to Quito. My daughter-in-law had to go back home. And then we crossed over a pass to go up to the east slope. And we went over this pass. And so this is us walking along. The weather, we were up about 14,000 feet. It was freezing. It was so cold. But we were still able to see some pretty unique birds walking along this pass.
Carole, somebody's curious to know what kind of camera you used.
My son and grandson have a better camera than me. They had Canon cameras with exchangeable lenses, things like that. I had a Canon zoom, 60 times zoom. So it's one of those point and shoots, but it has a really, really good zoom. Most of these pictures are done by my son and grandson, but my camera, and I can send information about it, is really good. If you don't want to lug around a big camera and lenses and things like that, either a Nikon or a Canon with a 50 or 60 or 70 times zoom is really great for birders. Okay, the third species of warbler that we saw, this black crested warbler. It was great to see a warbler with all of this. Another one of the lodges. So I just wanted to give you all an idea of the different kinds of lodges. This lodge was really nice because when you came in at night and you were discussing the birds, they brought over a special cider kind of drink that they had, warm cider drink, because it was kind of cool up here because it was really high up. Very nice. Okay, again, what this gorgeous jewel front hummingbird. In a way, you can see in a way why it's called a jewel front, just those different colors. This probably was our favorite lodge, Wild Sumaco Lodge. Again, kind of like a motel, nothing spectacular, but the setting was amazing. And you could sit on this deck, and because we were high up in the canopy, wonderful birds came by. So my son and grandson here with their cameras are shooting something. And this is what they were looking at. This is the evening shot, but this is Antisana, the volcano, the first volcano that I showed you. So from the deck, you had this gorgeous view of this volcano also.
Carole, we have a number of questions, so if we could just stop here for a second.
Sure. This is a good place to stop.
Somebody wanted to know how did you travel around the island?
Okay, we went with a man named Charlie Vogt, VOGT, who does Andean birding. That's his group, and he's really good. He's very, he's very flexible. So we called him and said, "This is what we want to do. What can you do?" And he just tailored the trip to us. He was not any more expensive than any of the ready-made trips, and probably maybe even a little bit cheaper. Very, very nice guy. Really easy to travel with, and really not. He lives in Ecuador. He has an Ecuadorian wife, and so he really knows the area very well.
The next question is the temperature range during the trip, and what month did you go?
When did we go? We went in the end of June, and so this is near the equator. So the days are warm. They were never too warm. They were never really, really hot because we were up fairly high in the Andes. The evenings were a little bit cooler. It's just when we went over the pass where it got really, really cold.
Okay, then we have a comment, which I just want to read because I think it's quite interesting. Okay. He thinks this is a beautiful presentation. His name is, excuse me if I mess up your name, Patricio Tamariz, ex-Vice Minister of Tourism, and have been 3 times to the British birdwatching fair, and always amazed at the interest of birding in Ecuador, and proud to say that many guides of the great birding companies are contracted all around the world. Thank you for promoting our country. There's more. For promoting our country. We have an interesting variety of bird species on the Ecuadorian coast in the dry tropical forest. Muchas gracias.
Well,
so that's kind of interesting.
We did go to the rainforest, which was, I didn't talk about that at all for this talk, but that was also very nice. We haven't been to the coast, so that's one of the things we want to go to the next time we go back to Ecuador. And I would definitely go back again. I highly recommend it. And I'm glad that he thanked me for that.
This is my most beautiful picture. It's a photograph, but it looks like a painting to me.
Well, I'm glad you like it.
I love it.
Oh, any more questions?
Not yet.
Okay. All right. So I will go on.
Yes.
Okay. So another one of the subacenes, montane foliage gleaner. I mean, it tells you what it does. And I love the name, the foliage gleaners, the wood creepers, the ant pitters, wonderful, wonderful common names. So this is not as colorful. And so they're a little bit harder to see because they blend in more in the forest. So they're really, when you can't get to see one, you're really lucky. Okay, so 2 more beautiful hummingbirds. So look at this one, the wire-crested thorntail. You can see why it was named that, the wire crests and the kind of the thorntails here. Okay, and the purple-throated wood star. I'm not sure why it's called a wood star, but you can see why it's called purple-throated. Look at that, just amazing colors, and amazing colors on this one also. I mean, I could just sit here for a few minutes and just look at these birds because they're just so gorgeous. Okay, the green Inca jay. So it's either a green jay or an Inca jay, depending on which side of the island you're on. of the Andes you're on, and another one of those birds that is either two species or one species, depending on which checklist you're looking at. And again, quite an interesting and colorful thing, and again, related to our blue jays. Okay, and then we saw some parrots and parakeets. These were just really just the way they were sitting were just so cute. The maroon tail parakeet. So you can kind of see the maroon tails, but we were driving along, we looked up and there they were, and we stopped and obviously took some pictures of them. This was the last place we stayed in, the San Isidro Lodge. And so you can see what the habitat looks like. Here's what a room looks like. Again, comfortable, not fancy, comfortable, and just really nice. Okay. So the trogons, we didn't see too many trogons. This was the greenback trogons. We saw one other trogon on this trip. Again, their own order. Okay, kind of more closely related to woodpeckers and things like that, but in a different order of birds totally. Okay, and maybe this is my favorite hummingbird. Okay, and just look at these colors, just so vibrant. They don't even look real to me. Another hummingbird, black-throated. And this is the only owl we saw on the trip, but certainly a nice one to see. Okay, the black banded, you can see the black bands. And again, we saw this at night. We were lucky to see that. So this was the end of the trip. This is our way back going over the pass. Again, just to show you what the habitat looks like on the eastern slope, a little drier, not as moist as on the western slope. And the last bird that we saw, the variable hawk. Okay, so I highly recommend Ecuador. It's beautiful. There are problems, as there are all over the world, with deforestation, habitat loss, because of agriculture, logging, development, oil exploration. There was some corruption with the previous president, but there are some solutions. And one of the unique things about Ecuador is that it's the first country to officially recognize that nature has constitutional rights, the right to exist, to persist, to maintain and regenerate in its vital cycles. So can you imagine if our constitution had gave nature rights also? Maybe some of the things that are happening wouldn't happen. And one of the things they've done with that is they had a program started in 2008 called Socio Bosque, a program to preserve land area by paying private landowners and community landowners incentives to maintain their land as native ecosystems rather than develop the land. And they also have a very good system of of protected areas. So this is Cotopaxi, another one of the beautiful volcanoes. And that's it for my trip, my talk. And thank you so much for attending.
Well, just one other thought. Somebody asked,
Sure.
They absolutely love doing lots of compliments. And then someone said, besides Ecuador, where else do you like to go birding?
My second favorite place is Costa Rica. We were going to go to Peru just before the pandemic struck, so we didn't go there. But Peru, I like Alaska. I've been to Alaska. I mean, South America and South and Central America have just such amazing diversity of birds that probably any of the countries, well, not any of the countries, but most of the countries in South and Central America would be where I would go first.
All right, and then somebody mentioned, just wait, irrelevant to birds. What about the cuisine in Ecuador?
Well, it's not fancy. It's good. The thing that I've noticed in Ecuador and also in Costa Rica is that things like eggs I mean, they use local stuff. So the eggs there taste so much better than most of the eggs that you get in this country because they are really free range. A lot of rice, a lot of beans, meats, not a big variety, but certainly good. I mean, I wouldn't go there for the cuisine, but the cuisine, it was fine.
Interesting. And one question, lots of compliments, but then it goes, how many species did you add to your list in Ecuador? How many altogether on your list?
Okay, I'm going to stop screen sharing now.
All right. Do you want me to repeat it?
Yeah, I don't know that I know how many. I mean, certainly hundreds, maybe 200 to 300, but I don't remember offhand.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you so much. I've seen this slideshow. This is my third time, and I've absolutely loved it each time. I just love looking at those birds and your trip. So thank you for also the travelogue. It was absolutely fabulous. And I know you, your son, and your grandson had a wonderful time.
Oh, yes.
I want to thank you and thank everyone who came. And I hope you enjoyed this little break from today's weather and enjoy yourself.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, bye, everyone.
Bye-bye.